It's 12 minutes to the top of the hour. We've had some wonderful music and an idea of what you can do tomorrow to find out what the Barbados Defence Force is doing. But now, as we always do in this segment on Thursdays, we talk with Jeremy Stephen, our financial consultant. What else could we be talking about but the budget? It's a heavy one, but Jeremy will guide us through it as he always does. Morning, Jeremy. How are you doing?
Morning, guys. And just like CeeLo, I wish I could just forget everything. But nonetheless, it was an interesting budget thus far, and an interesting week, and hopefully an interesting couple of months. Just to give you a very brief synopsis as to what the budget was proposing to do. Okay, mainly trying to attract investment into Barbados, more and more foreign investment into Barbados, while trying to actually decrease government wastage internally. And you didn't want to really, well, the minister tried his best not to really change how he was getting tax revenues from the populace, but rather was trying to give very good business incentives to those young entrepreneurs, small entrepreneurs, people within the alternative energy industry, within agriculture to an extent, though I thought he could have done more there, and also within international business, right? And the cultural industries, of course, which got a very nice boost as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, so.
What do you think of his decision not to roll back the allowances that were taken away for entertainment and travel, and the VAT, which everyone was sitting there with their fingers crossed hoping for?
Back to the 15.
Yeah, back to the 15.
All right, please understand this much. You know, we were talking about debt ceiling a couple weeks ago. I think the minister's primary concern, and I can share it, although I think he could be a bit more aggressive with regards to other policies, his major thing right now is to protect the stability of Barbados, right? And that's via the government. The thought is that the ratings agencies were very concerned that, well, they had too much conspicuous spending that was leading to imports, and we've only got like 20, it was just around 20, between 20 to 23 weeks of import coverage in this country. The main thing is this: most of those allowances go into fuel, go into buying stuff, you know, and it really made no sense to bring those back at this point if he's looking to protect the debt rating of Barbados. That is essentially what I think his problem was. In terms of VAT, I honestly don't know anywhere that will reduce VAT, particularly during a recession like this. You would hope so, but the thinking is, again, you want to control conspicuous consumption.
Okay, so we have to look to the long term.
Well, that's what he clearly said that at the beginning of his budget, that this is a budget for the long term.
All right, we're going to talk some more about that. We're just putting that out there, so you can think on that as well, but we're going to take this morning's first traffic report. It's 9 minutes away from the hour of 7. We have news coming up at the top of the hour, but it's time to say good morning to Sergeant Johnson for the first time today. How are you, Sergeant?
Good morning to you. I'm doing fairly good, and yourself?
I'm doing good also, and I hope that stays that way for me and for you.
I hope so too.
All right. How's traffic at this time?
Good morning to you. A very good morning to your guests. Good morning to our viewers and our listeners. All roads this morning, conditions are light. No collisions reported so far, but however, we're asking that persons continue to exercise care. Again, what is of concern? Too many persons are still parking on sidewalks in the city and in illegal areas. As I've said before, there are several government and private car parks in the city. I'm asking that person make good use of these car parks. It's regrettable we don't have a towing system or clamping system here. I'm sure that will reduce it. But however, in the meantime, we're reminding you to please make good use of these car parks in the city. Once again, the speed limit is still of some concern. Too many persons are reported daily for a speed in excess of 100, 160, 185 kilometers an hour, really too much for our streets. We're reminding you to stick within the speed limit. Too many lives are lost because of reckless behavior on our streets, so therefore we will continue our efforts to make sure our roads are safe for all. But in the meantime, once again, stick within the speed limit. On 2 minutes update then, it's all yours.
Thank you, Sergeant Johnson. We'll check in with you again during our news at 7 o'clock. So we look forward to connecting with you once again. That means we're continuing our conversation with Jeremy Stephen, the price of everything, and we were just talking about the long term. So what should people be doing? Because that is what is critical. If it is what it is, we have to obviously work with it because this is our land. This is where we live, work, and play. So what are some of your recommendations to people in terms of dealing with whatever?
All right. Well, firstly, as a worker, I think, especially if you're deemed to be middle class, the budget did not offer you that much relief. The thinking is that you could afford to bear it. And unfortunately, when governments get a bit austere, although that's basically a taboo word at this point, the middle class are the biggest spenders in society, non-economic spenders in a sense, are those who would actually face the worst end of the stick, for lack of a better term, okay? So for them, I think it's just a matter of actually just being smart with what little resources you've got now. Again, the government has clearly stated that they're not going to allow, well, not clearly stated, clearly indicated that they're not going to allow the average person to just go and spend conspicuously. Again, imports are a huge problem, and they would love to stem the flow of imports coming into the country. There are some considerations to importing alternative energy equipment, for instance, to retrofit houses, and you're getting a huge tax break on that from after September 1st, I believe. If I'm wrong, January next year. But here's the thing. You know that $10,000 tax break you got from the mutual funds that was just taken off? Yep. Here's a thought, and I credit Andy Armstrong from the Barbados Chamber of Commerce for actually stating this. Basically, not stating it publicly, but we had a conversation, and he said, well, you know what? That 10 grand that you had before in mutual funds, why not put it into energy equipment? Why not retrofit your home with some alternative energy? Again, the payback period, meaning the time it takes to actually make back the money or save the money that you would have spent on retrofitting your home. Yes, 8 to 10 years, but we know oil, yes, the prices are low, but again, you're going to claim. As much as oil is getting scarce, you're going to expect the prices to claim as well. That's another story right now where oil is lower worldwide and higher in Barbados. That's something we can get onto later. But the fact is, you can enjoy that tax break as immediately as possible. So people look out to try to go and retrofit your homes at least. That's at least the short-term to, medium to long-term solution I can think clearly of for the middle class in Barbados.
So how should musicians, entertainers, designers, people along that line, how should they now be proceeding? What should they be looking to do to take advantage of what was offered? All
right, well, the cultural industries are going to have access to $50 million over 5 years. It's a $10 million disbursement. Government is looking to guarantee the amount up to that time. What it does mean is that they're going to be, that's a lot of money set aside for just the cultural industries. I actually don't like the term cultural industries, so for now I'll say creative industries, okay? Because culture is much broader than that in that regard, okay? So the creative industries are not going to have very good access. The only issue is, and again, one of my concerns and general disappointments with the budget is that it was a lot of conjecture. Particularly when it came to things such as timelines and time frames and actual dollar amounts for most of the policies. And that was really a concern for me. With regards to this particular special purpose vehicle, which would be distributing the funds, there was no clarity as to, well, who was going to do it, where the money was going to actually come from, and when will it begin. Again, the minister said that that will be reviewed a bit later on during the course of the fiscal year. I just do pray and hope, at least, because this is an industry that we all believe can result in huge export potential for Barbados. And they really do need the support right now, and I would encourage the government to treat it as a priority going forward, especially since it was announced publicly that you will be going forward. So to you artists out there, to you well, singers and whatnot, try to get together your best team possible. There's a lot of money available. Put together your best proposals, practice and sing hard. You might be touring very soon and making good money for Barbados and for yourself and your family.
Jeremy, timelines was one of the things that came up in the response as well as in the post-budget discussion among the Chamber of Commerce, and I'm a little bit confused. You must help me. Are we not already in the middle of a medium to long-term fiscal strategy? Let's have that on one side of the screen. And on the other, we have the biting criticism by noted economist at the University of the West Indies, Dr. Brian Francis, saying that we don't have a revenue problem. We have an expenditure problem over a period of time. Help me out, please.
All right, so I'll treat two of those differently. Let's deal with the biting criticism offered by Dr. Francis yesterday morning. It does have some merit. I do believe, yes, we don't really have a revenue problem in the sense that money is coming into government and you would want government to manage their expenses. So there's this big call right now, and you heard the leader of the opposition, Mr. Owen, basically saying, well, privatization is one, and also most of your expenditure programs, they think it's enough, it's too much tinkering. And it isn't not radical, but it isn't revolutionary or innovative enough to really drive Barbados into growth. So the funny thing was that they did speak about, well, capping, or I wanted to say freeze, but that's a bad word, but capping annulments. Capping annulments.
Freeze is a bad word.
Yeah, very bad word. Yeah, but capping annulments for a while, so you can expect, well, public servants not to enjoy too much increases in the endowment factors. But here's the thing. There's a bit of more flexibility in terms of how government can move funds between departments or within ministries. The hope is that they can utilize that to drive better programs going forward. Now, I don't know if all of those things that were mentioned by the minister, the first set of measures, especially when it came to central government, okay, would result in any big changes in terms of wastage, right, or the reduction of wastage going forward. My hope is that they will, but there was an issue in terms of the measures and the controls governing those measures going forward, right? Secondly, now to answer the first part of your question, just remind me about it again.
Aren't we already in the middle of a medium-term fiscal strategy? 45 seconds or less, we're coming up to
easy,
next tip.
Easy. Strategies are very long-term in nature. You do have tactics surrounding it. Part of the medium-term strategy is to ensure that Barbados not only grows but remains stable. I think these tactics, and I'm calling this budget a very tactical budget, was one that was defensive so that it can maintain the stability of Barbados. It could have done more, but hey.